Hello, welcome to the Pale Wizard YouTube channel. My name's Dan, this is my colleague Tim. Today we're going to do something a little bit different and just have a chat, maybe a debate of sorts, because a lot of people have been talking about the performance of Guns N' Roses recently at the Glastonbury Festival, which happened, what, a week ago?
A week ago today, isn't it? 'Cause it's Saturday as of the recording. We're recording a week after the event. We've had a week to...
So it's probably Monday or Tuesday when you're
dwell on
watching this, by the time I've got to stick it up. But what struck me about that performance was the polarisation of the opinions that people have had. They've been quite extreme opinions, I found. Either people really, really hating on it, or people, the other way, really loving it.
Yeah.
And obviously me and you have different opinions on it, for sure. So, Tim, obviously, what's your background with Guns N' Roses?
When I was at school, everybody seemed to like either Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard and all that kind of thing, or like R.E.M. and all that kind of thing.
Right.
So, and I didn't really, probably more preferred R.E.M. than Guns N' Roses, but Guns N' Roses was never my kind of thing. So I knew the first two albums. I knew the bigger singles off of it, as everyone does, because they're so famous. But I don't really know any album tracks. I've never really listened to the albums that much, and it's not the kind of music that I listen to at all. That kind of 80s hair metal kind of cock rock stuff. So I've never really had much of a thing of Guns N' Roses over the years. I've avoided seeing them at festivals a couple of times.
Yeah.
I think that's the sort of the Axl era, isn't it? When the rest of the band weren't there, it was just Axl and a bunch of hired hands. So yeah, not a great deal of experience
Or affection.
Yeah.
Okay. My background, I've never been a huge fan, but I did like Guns N' Roses. One of my best mates from years ago was a massive Guns N' Roses fan. I was in the first band I was in. He was the guitarist, so obviously he was very, very influenced by Slash. Used to play me a lot of the old videos and live footage, and obviously I loved Appetite for Destruction. I didn't mind the Use Your Illusion albums that came after that, but even as a child, when I was listening to them, I knew they were bloated.
They're a step down, aren't they? I think.
Just filler. They would have made one really decent album, I think, but I think they just bloated them out, and then after that, they never really did anything, did they? They had some bunch of kind of semi-half-assed releases, and
then one release which took how many years to come out?
I don't think many people really count Chinese Democracy.
No.
I mean, I was one of those people that actually, when Chinese Democracy came out, quite enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was a kind of massively overproduced, overly pompous kind of pop rock record, but I quite liked some of it. There was a song called Catch You in the Rye that I really liked.
Okay.
But it was so produced, so it was kind of like, I'm accepting what it is.
Do you know, I've never heard it.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't.
No.
There's a couple of really decent riffs on it. Obviously, it's missing the original band, so it doesn't have any of that sound really. They did a thing in, I think it was the late 90s, and I think it was a soundtrack for. It was part of a soundtrack for one of those. Do you remember in the 90s all those films had rock soundtracks? Like the X-Files film or the Matrix and stuff like that, or what was that? Something of the Damned.
Oh, Queen of the Damned.
Do you remember that film? Do you remember the soundtrack? It was a really popular soundtrack.
The soundtrack was much better than the film.
Had like Rage Against the Machine on it and all these kind of new metal bands.
It was like, wasn't it the guy from Korn on a lot of it? Or
Yes.
Or did he sing it? I think what
Jonathan
it was
Davis.
was he sang all the songs in the film, because the idea of the film was it was like a singing vampire, and then for the soundtrack he wouldn't do it or whatever, and they got a load of people to come in and sing the songs in the style of Jonathan Davis. But
I remember
that was a good soundtrack.
Axl released a song under the Guns N' Roses name for one of those.
Okay.
And it was almost like a Nine Inch Nails sounding track. I think it was called Oh My God. And I remember loving that. It was nothing like Guns N' Roses. Like I said, it sounded more like Nine Inch Nails. It sounded more like a kind of semi-industrial kind of metal thing. Anyway, aside from all that, yes, I'm a fan. Not a massive fan, but I do have affection for them.
And do you prefer R.E.M.?
I used to love R.E.M.
Yeah.
I don't know really. I don't know now.
There was like 2 camps at my school. There was like all the weird.
It was more
rocker guys.
In our school. It was more grunge, like Nirvana and Alice in Chains.
Yeah, you're that little bit younger than me, aren't you?
I guess.
Grunge was never really much of a thing until my almost leaving school.
Because that was like the antithesis to all those 80s hair bands, wasn't it? When grunge came along. So I didn't really fall into it. I mean, I was in a weird camp where I liked Iron Maiden and Alice Cooper and Oasis, and I, Therapy and stuff like that. And so I wasn't really in a camp. I liked Marilyn Manson when I was 15. Anyway, so that's my background of Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
What did you think of the performance? When did you watch it? Did you watch it live?
I watched it this afternoon before we did this because I've been putting it off because I didn't want to watch it.
Did you watch any of it before?
I wasn't really planning to. Last Saturday night I was out.
Right.
So I didn't get to see any of it. I got a text message on Sunday morning because my wife went to work early saying that she was watching a bit of November Rain, I think it was.
Yeah.
And she said it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. You have to watch it. He's not even singing words. So I went quickly online and found a clip of November Rain, and then I agree, he wasn't really singing words. It was just sort of random sounds.
Okay.
So I think I messaged you at some point on the Sunday saying, "Have you seen any of this Guns N' Roses yet?" Apparently it's not very good, and we had a bit of a discussion about it. You hadn't seen anything at that point, had you?
No.
So I found some actual footage because people are complaining about the quality of the BBC recording of it, and whether or not the vocals were mixed loud enough. So I found some footage of someone who filmed it actually in the field holding up their camera phone, and it sounded worse. It sounded bloody awful. So I sent you that as well, I think.
Okay.
So listen to this. But other than that, I'd not really listened to much of it over the week. I listened to maybe 30 seconds here and there.
Right.
Everything I found when I was listening to 30-second snippets reinforced my opinion that it wasn't very good.
Okay.
Until I watched it earlier on, watched the whole thing.
Okay.
And now I know it wasn't very good.
Okay.
It was just... It wasn't awful.
Right.
It was just bad.
Okay. What, him?
Him, yeah. His performance was...
Okay.
He's not the singer that he was.
No.
How was he now? 61?
Mm-hmm.
61. So his heyday was in the 80s, where he was never a singer that I liked, but he always was renowned for having this sort of wide, I think they say 6-octave range. He's one of the most sort of gifted singers of his generation, some people used to say. No, I never agreed with that.
No, I never rated him as a singer.
No.
He's a very characteristic voice.
His range, I think, is large.
Yeah, I mean, he was always singing in that head voice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's never going to age well, I remember Paul Young blew his voice out quite early on because he was always singing, wherever I live. So he's singing right up here, and you can only do that for so long until you really start damaging the chords.
Mm-hmm.
Now with Axl, if he's doing all that, again, that's right up here. I'm assuming that's how he's doing it, because I've read some comments saying, well, he used to sing in a chest voice.
It's more of a falsetto, isn't it? Now?
It's a falsetto with grit, right? And that's something that's a technique, and I can't do it. I've tried doing the falsetto with grit. I can't do it. There's it's a style of singing which gives you that kind of like high octane rock kind of thing. I can't do it. I can only sing kind of full body, like clean. As soon as I start adding some grit, that's when I feel my throat going.
Sort of constricting.
So he could never really do it because live anyway. I remember seeing footage of him in the early 90s, and he was losing it live then.
Yeah.
But it was never really about that for me. It was never about it being a perfect replication of what's on the album. Guns N' Roses were the Hellbringers, weren't they? They were the people who just
were they?
That was what they were renowned for, throwing TVs out windows, rock and roll, sex, drugs. It wasn't about replicating the album, and I don't like bands who do try to replicate the albums. That's not what I'm about. However, I'm not trying to excuse his vocals. He had a bad night at Glastonbury, generally, and it sounded to me like he was ill.
It didn't help with the sound. I mean, the way, especially the way it started off.
Yeah.
You couldn't really hear him for the first few tracks. That didn't help. I
Yeah.
did see a few comments from people saying that, I watched it for half an hour and I turned it off because it was shit.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know any of the songs.
Yeah.
They didn't come out and start with some bangers that everybody knew.
Yeah, I saw some comments from people saying, "Oh, they didn't play any of the hits. They played all of the hits."
They did, yeah, but they did it over 2.5 hours.
Yes.
So I mean, I was falling asleep at one point watching it because there's a few songs there in a row. No idea what any of this is. I think they were playing stuff from Chinese Democracy.
Well, I do think. I mean, that's quite respectable of the band, isn't it, to be playing songs off Chinese Democracy?
I guess it's part of the band's history, isn't it?
And
they wanted to pad out a headline Glastonbury set.
And they played that Velvet Revolver song, which
They
didn't
did,
have
yeah.
Axl Rose singing it.
Not originally.
Which was
and
quite.
now we know why.
But
listening to that,
yeah, it wasn't great. However, you got to say hats off to Axl Rose for singing someone else's song. That, for him, for someone who's known as being quite a, the way he is, that's quite a thing, isn't it?
I was surprised to see them because they've had a reputation of being assholes, haven't they? They've got a reputation of being late for everything.
Yes.
They were on time.
They were.
And
yeah,
they
amazing.
weren't really.
They got on.
Yeah, they got on. They seemed to get on anyway. There was a couple of moments I quite enjoyed watching it. There was the track that Duff sang, which I thought was really good.
Yeah.
He's got quite a good voice, like a punky kind of voice, hasn't he?
He did the. Was it the cover, wasn't it?
I don't know what it
Was
was.
it UK,
there was a couple
UK
of covers
subs?
they did. No, I think that was Down on the Farm, wasn't it? And
Oh
that was
yeah.
Axl.
I quite enjoyed that actually. Down on the Farm.
I didn't like that at all.
When Axl's singing down here, when he's doing the kind of that's acceptable, isn't it?
It's yeah. It's fine.
I just think
don't like his voice. I think that's my issue.
Yeah. The thing is that there's moments I thought where it sounded fine, and there's moments where it's like, oh, and I just kind of felt he's having an off night, maybe laryngitis, maybe his voice is tired. But mostly what I was thinking is, Axl, you could just bring it down an octave.
The other bit I quite enjoyed was a new song, I think, Absurd. Yeah. And that was quite decent for them.
Well, because it's a new song.
Yeah.
It's written for his voice now.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yep.
That was one of the only tracks where I could hear them using samples.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? I mean, it was a vocal sample, but it was a sample. It wasn't trying to reinforce what he's singing, was it?
Mm-hmm.
It's something you couldn't replicate live. So it's, absolutely fine.
But they did. Some of the stuff which I thought they might have cheated a bit on, like Live and Let Die, all sounded to be live to me. So it was.
See, that was one of my main things about all the criticism that I read. That I thought, come on, at least they're really doing it. I mean, Axl wasn't hiding behind any technology. There was no supplementary tracks on his vocals. The band generally 99% was all live.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't really knock them for that. And every vocalist has an off night, and I'm a singer in a band, and I've had gigs where it's been an off night. I remember we did an album release show for not the last album but the one before, and I had a chest infection, and I was awful. I ended up having to basically shout the songs out, and I felt awful about it, but I couldn't cancel it because it was the album release show. So the show had to go on, and that's the kind of
and you can't really cancel Glastonbury Festival.
You can't. No,
as the Arctic Monkeys found out when apparently he had laryngitis or something, didn't he?
Yes.
And they still went. I've not seen that, so I don't know.
I've got no interest in that personally. Not my type of thing. But
but if you compare the three headliners, the one we hadn't seen, Arctic Monkeys, we can't really, but Guns N' Roses and Elton John. I mean, there's no real competition there with terms of entertainment and quality. I think Elton John won by a mile.
Well, it's Elton John though, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I guess
he was great.
Yeah.
He was
and
great.
like I say, his voice isn't quite what it was, but I think he's learned to deal with his voice changing more than Axl has.
Like you said, right?
To.
I think everyone's getting a bit over the top with the whole Guns N' Roses thing. It was a bad mic, a bad sound. He had a bad voice that night, and all those things combined. But it was still a very entertaining show. And the audience, you see the audience reaction on the night, they're loving it, aren't they?
But then they're at Glastonbury, aren't they? They just love everything. They're kind of.
But
they're just enjoying being
as
at the festival.
as a spectacle, it was very good. I
was expecting a bit more pizzazz from the actual show,
right,
to be honest.
Right.
I thought the screen, what they were showing on the screen, was a bit. A lot of the time, it was just sort of saying Guns N' Roses, Glastonbury.
Yeah, I'm not too keen on
2023.
all these screens. Everyone seems to be using now. Like Cat Stevens used a screen throughout his whole thing, and he was great, by the way. But
Yeah, and he sounded like he did in the
the thing
60s
is, when you
and
have
70s.
when you have a screen, I just want to look at the screen, and that annoys me. I want them
Yeah.
to.
I thought the idea of having those big screens there is so people can see what they're filming, so people further back can see.
Yeah, well, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Remember
yeah.
that time? Was it? Did you see Tool with me at Donington?
No.
No. Well, I saw Tool at Donington, and it was obviously very, very busy, so we couldn't get anywhere near. But we thought, it's fine. Got these big screens. No, it was just showing like weird shit the entire time.
I mean-
And obviously the singer stood at the back behind the drum
In
kit
shadows.
with his nose in the air, with his back to the audience.
I remember
the entire
seeing
set.
I remember seeing Tool once, and you couldn't even see them.
Yeah,
You couldn't see the
yeah.
band. It was just a silhouette of the band for an hour, and it's like,
I haven't forgiven them for that time where I went to see them in Cardiff, and Mastodon were supporting. And we got there relatively early, queued up, because the queue was moving really slowly to get in, and they were checking everybody for mobile phones and cameras and things, because they didn't want any of it filmed. And by the time that we got through this extra security check, we missed pretty much 3/4 of Mastodon's set, which was the main reason we went there. And then we had to then put up with another 2 hours of pretentious Tool.
I mean, I like Tool, but
I do, but it's,
They've
it's
never
highly
really-
pretentious.
they've never really been a great live thing for
They
me.
don't endear themselves to the audience. that well, I
No,
don't think.
no. It seems to be
There's
like
very much
anti-music.
disconnect, isn't there?
Yeah.
Between, but that's what they do, and I guess
Yeah.
they do it well for the people that do love it.
Yes.
But yeah, again, they use screens all the time. So Guns N' Roses seem to be doing that for the majority of the show. From when I was looking at the screen, anyway, I seem to see these animations and things there, and it all looked a bit kind of 20 years ago. So yeah, not so special from the presentation's point of view as well for me.
So obviously, there's a lot of people calling, for Axl Rose to retire, and I just think it lacked a bit of context, all this stuff, because apparently they've done a few shows since in Glasgow. I've seen people saying, and
Seem to have been quite well received, haven't they?
all the comments seem to be very positive, and also what made me kind of think about it was, I remember seeing footage of him when he filled in for Brian Johnson from AC/DC a few years back now, and the footage was really impressive. It's like, wow, Axl's like really nailing these AC/DC songs. So, and I've heard he's actually working with a vocal coach now. He's actually kind of looking after his health. So I think people are being a little bit cruel, maybe. I did write something on a Facebook, so the studio Facebook page. I thought I'd just put my 2 cents. Wasn't supposed to be like a political diatribe or anything. It was just, here's my opinion. And I bet
you made the mistake of putting your opinion in the public domain
Well-
on Facebook, unfortunately.
I didn't really think about it. I just thought, maybe 10 people might. I use the studio Facebook page as a way just to kind of like get local musicians talking about music, also to kind of inspire.
Well, you certainly did that with this, and more so.
So it wasn't local
No,
musicians.
it wasn't just local musicians. I'm afraid.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those people who likes to kind of shout on the internet and look, hear my voice kind of stuff. I just wanted to kind of like maybe get a couple of local bands talking, and anything that gets people talking about rock music is good for studios and local venues, because we want to encourage more people to pick up a guitar and play the drums and join a band, because the scene is seriously lacking in our city of Bath right now, as Tim will attest.
Certainly is. Yes.
So anyway, I just put up a little post. Wasn't supposed to be, anything contentious. So I'll just read it quickly. My 2 cents on the whole Guns N' Roses performance at Glastonbury. I loved it. Axl's voice was what it was. To be fair, it's always been a bit nasally and an acquired taste. Sure, he might be struggling with some of the notes, but at least it was real. I didn't hear a single bit of auto-tune or backing tracks used to enhance the performance. And the entire band were playing live. Can that be said of most new and current bands? Absolutely not. I mean, that's true, isn't it?
Agreed so far.
Additionally, I didn't hear the same amount. Now, this is where I got into trouble. I didn't hear the same amount of negativity aimed towards Lewis Capaldi when he had vocal issues. I'm not making an opinion on that. That's not a criticism of Lewis Capaldi.
You're just saying you didn't hear.
Yes,
People
I didn't
criticising him.
That's literally just me making an observation, okay? But it's apparently okay to mock the vocal abilities of a 61-year-old man, purely because he's an older rock star? Question mark. Screams of ageism to me. Maybe that was a bit over the top.
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, people seem to think so.
No one's saying you have to like them, and many don't, but I'd like to see some other 61-year-olds try and put on a performance like that whilst running up and down the stage constantly for 3 hours. That was wrong. It's 2.5 hours.
Yeah. He did constantly run up and down the stage.
He was pretty active.
He was pretty active, but he wasn't constantly running. He sat down for 10 minutes doing November Rain, for God's sake.
Pretty remarkable in my opinion. Many of the bands out touring right now would struggle to complete a show without the multitude of backing tracks and assistants that they use. Now that's a fact, and I've seen it happen. I've seen Jack was telling us, wasn't he, about that gig that they played. He's a drummerino in a band where the backing tracks for the headline band, their laptop wasn't working, so they just packed up and went home. Rather than just play the gig, they couldn't play the gig. So they couldn't just rely on their voice, guitars, bass, drums. No.
It is a sorry state of affairs, isn't it?
See, that's my issue. But we'll get onto that anyway. I'm not hating on it, as it all has a place, which it does, because obviously a lot of bands, use backing tracks as a kind of like an extra member of the band, and it's doing the stuff that the band couldn't do live. Fair enough.
And it makes it easier as well if you're syncing what you're doing up with lights to have.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Everything's on rails now, so everything's synced up MIDI with the lights, the light show, and the pyrotechnics. But let's be honest for a minute. How many established bands do you see right now doing it all for real? Dan X. That was it. Okay.
So where are we at now with the likes and the comments and the shares?
Well, this is what the kids would say has gone viral. So it's had 8.1 thousand likes.
Are they all likes or some of them laughs?
Oh, let's have a look.
Because it's not all like, isn't it, anymore?
Okay, 6.9 thousand likes.
Right.
1.1 thousand hearts.
Yeah.
39 laughing emojis. 18 care emojis. 2 angry.
Yeah.
1 sad.
Okay.
And 1 wow.
1 wow.
And it's had a lot of comments.
Yeah.
1,300.
At the time of writing. Yeah.
From my studio Facebook page, which has a very small reach. It's basically liked by the musicians who use our studio.
Yeah.
So this is being shared and shared and shared, and and obviously it's caused quite a lot of aggro. And a lot of people,
which is what we like.
A lot of people have agreed with me. I've lots and lots of comments saying, Dan, you're the best.
Which is really why you do it, isn't it? Just to hear
100%,
just to hear that
100% agree. Yeah, massive ego boost. However, sadly, there's a lot of people who are really, really mean.
When you say mean, you mean they don't share your opinion?
How dare they have a different opinion?
They basically go on the internet with a different opinion and write it down, just like you did.
Like I said, that post was not meant to be agree with me. There was
a question mark in it, so I suppose it was asking for a response.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was my 2 cents.
Yeah.
At the point of it saying, it's a silly thing to say my 2 cents, isn't it? As someone pointed out, actually. I just thought it might be quite interesting for me and you to dive into some of these comments. I've picked out a few because there's so many, and I was getting a headache reading through it. So, with regards to my ageism comment, Dan, screams of ageism, don't talk shit. This is by Neil, by the way. It wouldn't matter if he was 6, 16, 40 or 61. You sound bad then, you sound bad, and he sounded effing bad. Okay?
Effing bad, eh?
Chrissy said, I adore Guns N' Roses. Band played amazing. I would have preferred Axl to stand still and sing. He pushed himself physically too much, so vocals suffered. Fair point. But did well for 61. Lewis Capaldi is a different matter. He was supported and no criticism toward him because he is going through stuff health-wise. Nothing to do with ageism. I didn't say that. And I didn't criticise Lewis Capaldi. I literally said I didn't see the same
I shall not invoke the name of Lewis Capaldi.
Well,
clearly.
The thing is, obviously, I watched the Lewis Capaldi performance after all these comments.
Now, did you watch all of it? Or
I did.
Is it all online? Because he
it's only like 32 minutes or something.
Yeah, they've
like
cut
that.
it right down then. Because I started watching it live.
Right.
Because I was sat at home on the afternoon.
So what was he doing then?
I'd never seen the guy before.
Right.
Wouldn't be able to pick him out in a lineup.
Right.
And never heard any of his songs. So I put it on, expecting some kind of Ed Sheeran-y kind of stuff. And he comes out and he starts singing a song, which I didn't know, obviously.
Okay.
And the crowd seemed to love it.
Okay.
And then he stopped that one song, and then he did like some kind of stand-up comedy routine,
Right.
which seemed to go on forever. And he was clearly quite.
There was a lot of talk.
suffering
There was
with
a
his
lot of talking
confidence
in
a
the
bit.
footage I saw.
He said something about Ed Sheeran wrote this song with him. So,
Right.
ladies and gentlemen, Ed Sheeran is not here today.
Right, okay, fair
winding the
enough.
crowd up a bit, which was sort of amusing.
Yeah, that's good.
And I lost interest and turned it off after that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
he seemed to be struggling a little bit with his voice, and I did notice him ticking, so I did Google out and type in Lewis Capaldi Tourette's, and it came up saying, oh yeah, he was diagnosed with Tourette's.
But I had no idea. I had no idea. This
So
guy,
I only knew from watching the guy live.
I didn't know he had Tourette's. I didn't know
make
he
a
had
Facebook
tics.
post about it.
No, I'm not. That's neither here or there. I'm a.
Equal opportunities offender.
Well, no, I'm. It's irrelevant to me. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Not that I don't have sympathy. Of course, I have sympathy. But we're talking about music. If someone's got Tourette's, does that mean I can't criticise their music now? Does that mean that they are exempt?
But you didn't criticise his music.
No, I didn't.
No.
But can I?
Go ahead, criticise his music.
No, I mean,
What do you think of his music?
sounded to me, the first song sounded to me he was reaching a little bit, right? And I did recognise the first song because I've heard kids sing it in here.
Right.
It's a nice song, but it sounded like he was reaching a little bit. Sounded like his voice was a bit tired.
Right.
Nothing, we've all been there. He probably could have powered through, get the audience to sing a little bit, but obviously he was struggling with the tics. Maybe that's what exacerbated.
I'd say it was a vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was struggling with his voice, so therefore that brought on the tics, which made his voice worse.
Having the extended breaks between songs probably doesn't help. You know what I mean? Because you're, you can kind of hide behind the music a little bit when you're playing the music. For me, I feel I don't like talking between songs.
He would have been better off, I think, if he kind of just because when he was just talking, I was sort of thinking, is this a Peter Kay show that we're at now, or
not that we're trying to say that we're experts in Tourette's. We're not, obviously. But I didn't mention Tourette's. That wasn't my point. But now it's in context, right? That's the point, right? There was context for Lewis Capaldi, and there's context for Axl Rose. Anyway, Andrew said, of the isms and phobias that aren't allowed, ageism is seemingly acceptable. I don't find it offensive, I find it tedious. And usually it comes from those who watch at home and are too tight to pay the ticket price.
Oh, well, the ticket price is £300. So I don't know if they're necessarily tight for not buying a £300 ticket when you don't even know who's going to be playing. That's the thing with Glastonbury.
Yeah, that is the thing with Glastonbury.
It sells out before anyone knows who's
But
playing.
everyone who goes to Glastonbury goes, you're not paying for the lineup. You're paying for the experience.
I would still be paying to see some of the bands. I mean, this year, if I'd have bought a ticket, it would turn out that I would have actually probably got my £300 worth. But
yeah, true.
most years, that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been in Glastonbury for ages. I used to love going, but
I think you'll find it's very different now to what it was when you last went.
Probably, I'd probably still enjoy it, but it's not a lineup that's massively geared towards the stuff I like. But
no, but there's so much of it that when you look at the lineup page on the website for Glastonbury,
I mean,
you just scroll down for
you
ages.
would have been well catered for.
I would have
for
been
sure.
well catered for this year. Yeah.
So in regards to the backing tracks, Stuart Collins, he said, "Well, this is awkward. Have you seen Iron Maiden lately? And modern bands using backing tracks because the tracks are more complex. The tracks are for additional instruments and vocals, not to replace or hide on stage ones." Yes, we have seen Iron Maiden lately. Bruce Dickinson can't sing like he used to.
Definitely not.
Right? So he's a great singer. I love Bruce Dickinson. And he adapts the songs to be able to sing it the way he does. You're not going to see him do Flight of Icarus now. no, not like the way he used to sing it.
No.
Right, even Bruce will admit that.
He knows his strengths, doesn't he?
And he does a very good job of kind of working within the remits of what his voice can do now. His voice has aged.
And we're talking about someone that's recovered from, what was it, throat cancer?
Yeah.
So,
but don't pretend that he's firing on all cylinders. And he's a different type of vocalist as well. You know,
his voice. I mean, when we did the ranking
yeah,
thing for Iron Maiden, and we both said that his voice was quite grating on those last couple of albums for the big sort of vocal numbers where he's just belting out this kind of like foghorny kind of vocal.
I think it improved on the very last one.
I think it did, yeah. So I think he was learning to sort of adapt his voice for how he is now at his age and his current sort of health status, I suppose.
And this statement, modern bands use backing tracks because the tracks are more complex. No. A lot of modern that's true for some bands, for sure. But I can tell you a lot of modern bands are using them because they're lazy and they're reliant on it. And like Tim said, the show is on rails, so it's all synced up to the screens, the lights, everything. You've got vocals, guitars coming through the backing tracks. As far as I'm concerned, there's no excuse for that.
Just hire another guitarist.
Or get a backing vocalist. Now, yeah, if you've got like electronic stuff and strings and you don't want to bring an orchestra, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, obviously.
I personally don't like it. I don't like it because I think it makes the show sterile. I don't want to hear the record on stage. I think that the record and the live environment are two separate things.
There's been a lot of that with Devin Townsend, hasn't there, and Strapping Young Lad over the last few years.
That's really upset us, hasn't it?
It's a shame the way that's gone, because he literally just brings a laptop on stage and all the gremlins that usually occur.
Oh yeah,
hinder the show. I've seen him.
Haven't you seen it happen twice?
At Bloodstock, he played the click track over the front of the house, so we could all hear it. Because
the whole show, just because what he should have done is turn the laptop off.
Yeah, but everything, all the synths are on.
Did he have a full band?
It was just him, another guitarist, bassist, and drummer.
So they could have done the songs, but it would have been Sans.
It would have been Sans synths.
Well, just do it.
I don't think it would have sounded the same, would it? That's there.
I don't want it to sound the same. When we used to go see Devin Townsend, I mean, the first time I saw him, was it like 2000, 2001? The Physicist tour? I can't remember what venue in London it was. It might be in the Mean Fiddler. And it was basically Devin with the strapping young lad band. So Gene Hoglan, Byron Stroud and Jed Simon playing Strapping Young Lad and Devin songs. And they had a keyboard player as well. And the keyboard player was doing the kind of big because there's that big wall of sound thing that Devin goes for, and it was chaotic. It was brilliant. I mean, it was obviously the pace went up and down because it's live. There's no click track.
They did that for the following tour when we saw them at the garage. Strapping Young Lad.
Yeah.
And then for that big tour, we were at Strapping and Devin and Zimmer's Hole.
Keep It in the Family tour.
That was really good, and that was all done live.
All live, and it was fantastic. And obviously, mistakes. There was mistakes. But
it didn't sound like the record.
I don't want it to sound like the record.
Yeah.
I just think, I don't know. This is a personal thing for me, but I think they're two completely separate arenas. If I wanted to hear the record, I'd just put the record on at home. I won't pay 120 quid to go watch you at the O2 Arena. I want a sense of danger when I go to watch a gig. Like Faith No More, they never play to clicks or backing tracks, and there's always mistakes, and it gives you that sense of anticipation, doesn't it?
Of course.
So I understand where Stuart's coming from, but I think it's a bit naive to think that that's the only reason the bands are using backing tracks.
I mean, when it's just used for syncing the lights and syncing the video screens into one big show, it's cool, it's great, but when you're hiding a lot of extra stuff in there, which you could just hire some more people to come play live. Yeah,
but you're not getting that kind of push and pull. Nothing ever speeds up, nothing ever slows down. At least Maiden's a good example. They do play live, and some songs that they always play too fast. But
with Nico, you kind of expect that, don't you?
Yeah. And also, let's be completely honest. There are bands out there miming vocalists. Motley Crue, Wasp. I mean, who else is miming at the moment?
I don't. Well, those are the main culprits, aren't they? That I've seen most famously.
But there's a ton
But
of these
yeah,
80s,
people you
80s,
suspect.
80s glam metal bands, isn't there? A lot of them who've lost their voices completely.
Maybe it would have turned better if Axl did mime then.
The first time I saw it happening was the first gig I went to with Michael Jackson, 91. He mimed one song, which was Thriller. It's because he was wearing the werewolf costume.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing the whole dance and all this stuff.
Was he holding a microphone and miming it, or was he just dancing to the track?
He was dancing, so he had like a pretend head mic.
Yeah.
But it was clearly the song off the record.
Did it just ruin your entire?
No, because it's doing the dances. Oh, fair enough. And how was he going to sing through that mask? It's bloody obvious, isn't it?
Should have just done it, so it would all like.
Yeah. But as far as I'm aware, that's the only miming he did that night. I might be wrong, but that was my memory. But now it seems that some bands. I mean, it's a bit different when you see Britney Spears do it, because it's pop music, and pop music is kind of it's more of a product, isn't it? It's more of a rock music, guitar-based music. I think has to be done live. It's for me. You're messing. I think you're messing with it too much.
Yeah, I agree with that on the whole, but. Well, no. Let's move on.
Mark says all music is real. It's a very wide-ranging spectrum. As long as they're doing their own thing, that's all that matters. He thought Guns N' Roses were great. He also thought Billy No Mates was great.
Billy No Mates was someone I didn't see.
Right.
But she played her set.
Right.
And it was posted on some kind of social media by the BBC.
Right.
And then there was a massive backlash in the comments, kind of like this, but a bit more nasty towards her.
What was the comment? What were the comments?
I didn't see. I've just read the news story. So
is it something about her playing two backing tracks?
I don't know. I didn't read any of it. It would be interesting if it was.
Was it? But I think the issue was because it was just her.
Yeah.
There's no band.
Then she would have been, wouldn't she?
Well, that's fine though, isn't it? If you don't have a band.
But her reaction to that criticism was, right then, that's it. I give up. I'm not doing it anymore. And she asked the BBC to remove all the stuff which they did from social media.
Well, that's just modern life, isn't it?
So whether or not she's retired from the music industry,
I mean, social media is the real culprit here. Turn it off.
Yeah.
If it affects you that much, don't read it.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares what some dickheads on Facebook are saying about you?
If it really, really affects you, print all the comments out, sit down and make a video like this, and just go through them.
Yeah.
And just this is your therapy.
Our challenge to Billy No Mates is do a video like this. I heard from a few people that she was really good.
It might just be her by herself though, because she hasn't got any friends. Apparently.
A couple more comments. Colin Ingram said, "It's actually nice to see a positive post for a change. I know this is a dull men's group." No, so it's my studio page. we're not some men's rights activists.
Well, we are pretty dull. I guess
yeah, that's true. But the number of people here who seem to think their opinion is fact is feckin' tedious. Yeah, well, sums up everything, doesn't it?
That's the world in a nutshell.
John Bridgman Williams, my 13-year-old son's favourite performance of this year. I thought they were great. Was waiting for it to be a car crash because of what had been written. I was 15 when Appetite came out. I think pretty much everything they've done since is hit and miss. It's true. But even songs I didn't previously like worked much better live. Of course he can't sing like he's 25 anymore. I can't do a lot of things like I'm 25 anymore. That's life. Well, it's nice to hear that his son liked it. That's always positive, isn't it? I mean, if a 13-year-old kid watches it and gets inspired to...
Yeah. Well, that's the hope, isn't it?
Yeah.
That there will be future generations inspired by some of these bands, because there aren't a lot of bands from the previous generation, in the last 20 years that are going to be headlining these gigs in another 20 years' time.
Alright, so a couple of positive comments. Debbie Hodges said, "Absolutely amazing. I'm 10 years younger and I couldn't have run up and down that stage for 3 hours, let alone sing as well." Liam, we know Liam very well. "They were great. He was just out of breath from all the running around. Fair play to him."
And Liam would know, because he does a lot of running around himself.
Yeah, he does. Penny Wallace, "Well said. For me, it was amazing and took me right back to my 20s. She says, "It was also amazing that because they stayed in Bath, her hometown, which is where we are."
So yeah, so Slash turned up the following day in my wife's place of work. So she
Oh,
works
yes.
for the
That's better. And that's been shared a lot,
the
that photo.
Frankenstein Museum in Bath, the House of Frankenstein.
Did she take that photo?
And she took the photo.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, in fact, because she's not much of a fan of Guns N' Roses, the sort of, I'm guessing it was either his girlfriend or a member of his staff that was with him, sort of said to her, "Oh, do you want to get in the photo as well?" Because it was taken with another 2 members of staff, and my wife said, "No thanks, I'll just take the photo."
I told Bib that he couldn't believe it because obviously he sent me that photo. I went, "Oh, Tim's wife took that photo."
Yeah.
He's like, "I can't believe it."
Yeah, she took it and she didn't want to be in it, and Slash just thought that was funny, apparently. Because I can imagine many people turn down the opportunity to get the photo taken.
I mean, I'm surprised because he's been involved with a lot of bands that she likes. Slash has been a very versatile guitarist over the years, hasn't he?
Yeah, I did ask her to, because she messaged me saying, "I think Slash is in the building." I said, "Well, go and ask him about working with Insane Clown Posse, because we're both big fans of that band." And she
didn't.
No.
Useless.
Because apparently he really got on well with them.
Really?
Yeah. He was wearing their merchandise at a gig
I think
after.
he worked with Michael Jackson, didn't he? And
he did, yeah.
Alice Cooper. And,
yeah. But he's also worked with Axl Rose for years and years and years, and it kind of balances it back in the negative swing of things for me.
With regards to the BBC, Robert Wilson, and there was a lot of these, so I just picked out one. He thinks the sound at Glastonbury was a BBC problem. He saw them a couple of nights ago in Glasgow, and the sound was perfect. There was a lot of comments saying that.
Were these all outdoor shows? These other gigs they're playing? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm assuming so.
I would have thought so.
I'm assuming
Band of that
so.
size.
A lot of people said that they were there and it sounded much better. Then a lot of people said they were there, it sounded worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
The footage I saw from film on, it sounded terrible. Filmed by people's camera phones.
Yeah, but camera phones are awful though, aren't they?
Decent ones now. They do kind of do quite a decent reproduction of the sound.
It's not the same.
No, but you can hear his voice cutting
Yes.
through much louder with the camera phone
Are
recording.
you talking about the clip in November Rain?
Yeah, was it November Rain?
Well, that was a particularly bad song.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a particularly bad moment in the set. I will.
Did he? Do you think he forgot the words, or was he just?
We sat down for a start. That doesn't help.
No.
If you're sat down.
Elton John sat down for an hour and 45 minutes.
He's used to it though, and he's been doing that for 60 years.
In fact, when he stood up, he sounded a bit better, but his trousers kept falling down.
Now, who was this? TJ blew a bit of smoke up my ass. So I'll read some positive stuff before I get onto the negative stuff. This was such a well-written and honest post. These guys are legends. They have been there and done it twice over. Finally, someone like yourself has the guts to say it like it is. Thank you, TJ. I've been a
Do you know
GNR
this
fan.
person?
No, I don't. Checks in the post.
He knows this person.
Since the mid-80s, GNR songs are not easy to sing for even a young singer, let alone a 61-year-old. On that point, I sing a couple of Guns N' Roses songs in the bar band I'm in, and I think we do Mr. Brownstone and You Could Be Mine, and to be fair, I sing both of them in the lower register.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try and sing it in the register that
Maybe
Axl
Slither
does.
as well.
Yes.
Better than he did it the other night.
Well, Scott Whelan sang that in the lower register,
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
he?
he did, yeah.
So that's fine, that one. It's actually quite difficult to sing still, but I find Axl's songs when he's doing the fry voice, that's what I was trying to find earlier, is impossible. I can't do it because I just sound like a chipmunk. So I do them down, but with a bit of kind of nasaliness on the voice. It seems to work alright. So yeah, I understand what he's saying. All the haters, take a seat in the back. No one cares what you think. Well, no, I do care. I do actually want to hear all the points of view. I'm interested in why this is divided opinions so much. John Woodgate, on the other hand, just says Dan is wrong.
Well, that's quite accurate.
Thanks, John.
That can be applied to most things in life, really, not just this particular. Just Dan is wrong, just covers it all. What a nice thing to say. He didn't even explain it, just said Dan is wrong. Not Dan is wrong because...
Not my opinion's wrong, I'm just wrong.
No, but you did, is that an X at the end? He's put Dan is wrong and then
kiss.
a kiss. Yeah. So yeah, he sort of hands out the near the rough, then gives you a bit of a smooth afterwards.
Yeah. Kisses me after
Yeah.
he's right. So
Anyway,
Tony Clark. Have people forgotten that it's okay to have a view that isn't positive? It's okay to say that something isn't good as it was. Isn't as good as it was. I don't think that wagon wheels are as good as they were when I was 12, but that doesn't make me a bad person.
they're definitely smaller.
They're not, apparently.
That's bollocks. They're
No,
definitely smaller.
no. Apparently, I watched a video. This is stupid, but it was the wagon wheels factory. Right? The guy at the factory had in like a frame. I wonder what this is. It must have been on TV. I'll try and find it for this video. He had a frame with a wagon wheel from like 1977, right? Framed, so he got a new one and pull it up against it. It's the same size.
That's some kind of optical illusion then, because they're definitely smaller.
I'll try and find the video.
I don't believe. I'm not going to believe the video
apparently-
because I know they're smaller.
Well, the thing is, we know everything else has got smaller,
Yeah.
don't we? Crisps used to be 36 grams a bag. Now it's what, 24s. Anyway, blah blah blah. In my line of work, if someone thinks I'm not as good as I was, then they have the right to think so, and it means that I lose customers as a consequence. It's life, it's opinion. It's fine for us all to think differently, and it's okay for us to say it out loud.
Wonder what his line of work is.
Well, I don't disagree.
Yeah, but it's
I
a
don't
very-
understand. I don't quite understand what the point is.
It's just I'm going to sit on the fence and everyone should come and join me, isn't it?
Is he saying it wasn't good, or is he saying, I don't know what he's
He's
saying.
saying it's okay.
It's
So
okay. It's
to have a
okay.
view that it isn't good.
Well, I mean,
It
there's
isn't positive.
You know, a lot of people say, you know, if you've got nothing good to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
That's kind of probably quite a good rule of thumb in life, isn't it? Because what's the point in spreading negativity just for the sake
general
of it?
life, I don't think on the internet people don't seem to act that way, do they? If they've got nothing good to say, they want to go on the internet and say it.
I don't. I generally try not to do. I mean, if I really, really hated the Guns N' Roses set, I probably wouldn't have done a post about it, saying my 2 cents. It was awful.
No, I didn't post online about it.
But the only reason I post online is because I wanted to put something maybe slightly positive.
Yeah.
Because I can't be bothered spreading negative stuff.
Well, the fact you put it on the studio page kind of meant you just wanted to get some local musicians talking about it.
Yes, it
And
wasn't
talking about the issues.
exactly. It wasn't my personal
Arranged,
page.
I guess,
It wasn't
yeah.
on the label page because
Nope.
it's kind of not really label related.
No, we've not yet had Guns N' Roses on one of our records, have we?
No, and
Reply to any of our emails at that time.
no, I don't disagree with what Tony said there, but Chris Broadsword said decent show and the crowd appeared stoked throughout. Was the real review. Joyless journos from the papers like The Independent had it in for Guns N' Roses before they even played. Just imagine how much fun them guys must be at a party.
The Independent. Yeah.
Now, that's the reason, that's reminded me, that's the reason I wanted to put something positive on the Facebook page. Because The Independent, which is probably the most cancerous news source in the world,
It's not even a newspaper
Oh,
anymore, is
it's
it? It's
just-
just an online thing.
it's I counted about 3 or 4 things that they put up basically slagging Guns N' Roses off a time and time again, and they put up this thing which said Guns N' Roses could be the worst headliner of all time, like they're reporting on news.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what it turned out is actually that's just the opinion of
That was the headline for their review, wasn't it?
the headline for
Yeah.
that was just the opinion of that person, or maybe one dickhead they spoke to at the festival, right?
And it was still a 2-star review. So
2-star review, right?
I didn't think it
But
was that bad.
but then what happens is all the other news sites, Blabbermouth and all these Vice, or I don't know what they are, all these other Facebook things, they then repost that story as if it's a viral thing. So from one stupid comment from someone at The Independent filled with hate and just bitterness, then
Didn't enjoy his evening, clearly.
then gets shared by all the other news sites as if it's like a collective opinion. It's just the opinion of one guy at The Independent. Now, he's entitled to his opinion, quite rightly. But what annoys me is the fact that suddenly social media is consumed by the same story, even though it just came from one person. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And The Independent is renowned for just posting nonsense, just to upset people, just to rile people up all the time. They're like the Daily Mail, but for the other side.
Kind of agreed with them, though.
Well,
Kind of agreed with the
Well,
Yeah, they
one of the
probably
worst
are.
headliners.
Well, I don't really watch Glastonbury religiously.
Right.
But yeah, they're probably one of the worst headliners I've seen. But now I've sat and watched a whole lot of it, and usually I wouldn't have bothered. So now I can say they're one of the worst headliners I've seen because I've watched it all. They were worse than Elton John, and they were worse than who played last year. McCartney, it was on a par with that. That wasn't good, was it?
It wasn't great.
No, but it was on a par with that.
But there was context with McCartney.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he was of an age, and
people thought that he might come out this year and do Live and Let Die. Apparently, he probably saw the way it was going and thought.
I mean, I saw that Stormzy set.
Was that last year?
Was that last year or the year before?
No, I didn't watch any of that.
I deeply hate. Well, I didn't hate it. Disliked it, but it's not my type of music. So, I thought it was awful. Really.
Did you
really
think
bad.
it was one of the worst headliners at
Yes.
Glastonbury 2 stars?
Oh, I wouldn't even give it 2
Would
stars.
you give it 1 star?
But however, I wouldn't review that because it's not my type of music.
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
That's NME-itis, that is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
why-
They used
why-
to review like metal bands.
I
And
would
say, well,
choose.
This is crap.
I would choose to ignore it and let someone who's into that R&B, or what is it, drill? I don't know what Stormzy
Pass.
is. I'm sorry.
It's rap of
It's
some
just
description.
noise for me.
Mm.
And I know that sounds really.
The
petty,
Independent did like Lewis Capaldi though.
but- well,
There was a lot of positive news stories over the weekend about Lewis and his struggles with his Tourette's.
are we reviewing a music performance?
They didn't mention the music. They were talking about how great it is that he managed to get through his set. And
Well, absolutely. Like, you know, I've got a lot of respect for the kid. He's obviously got a good sense of humour, and he's obviously that's got to be a struggle, hasn't it? Going in front of that many people with, you know, the tics and stuff.
Mhm.
But was it a great music performance? No, it wasn't.
and Lizzo.
There wasn't
I
much
think
of it.
Lizzo was the other one they loved.
They said she should have headlined.
Should have headlined, and I think from the crowd sizes, she probably should have. Not for the quality of the music, because again, Lizzo, I don't know. I watched 10 minutes of it. Far too much.
Not for me.
Far too much swearing and jiggling around.
Not for me. There's the
Switched
it
it
was
off, but-
F this, F that. Within the first 30 seconds. I mean, I'm not a prude, but I'm sorry, that's not.
Yeah, she.
We have kids come to the
But
studio
she
and sing
should
that stuff,
have
and
headlined. She should have headlined because more people went to see her.
no, just no.
Guns N' Roses are
I'm glad.
basically.
I'm glad there are a lot of people who liked Lizzo. Might be. I'm.
She's current.
Yeah, fair enough.
Right, I've just played devil's advocate a bit. Guns N' Roses
Yeah.
are a heritage act, aren't they? They
Yes.
don't have anything new to offer.
Yeah,
Even that new song is a reworking of something they did 20 years ago.
yeah.
Whereas Lizzo, she's the current thing.
Lizzo's more suited for Glastonbury because
She's, yeah, exactly.
Glastonbury's not a rock festival.
More people, I think, with the possible exception of Elton John, she had the biggest crowd of the entire weekend.
Do you think?
Hmm. Now, whether that was because some of the people that would have, maybe if she'd have gone on, Lana Del Rey was headlining the other stage, wasn't she, when Guns N' Roses were on?
And she went on late.
And she went on late of all people. Well, I mean, apparently she's quite notorious for that as well. But
Right.
she, yeah, she was the one who went on late, and Guns N' Roses weren't. Who'd have thought it? But yeah, maybe if Lizzo went up against Lana Del Rey, they would have. That would have been a bit more of a split, audience-wise. But yeah, I think she took some of the audience away from Guns N' Roses. Very possibly.
Oh, so obviously, look, there was tons of people who really enjoyed the performance, loved it, not seen the footage, blah 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 blah. They've been excellent whenever I've seen them. Great post, totally agree. Great post, great performance. I loved it. Agreed. Absolutely loved it. I've watched it 3 times. Craig.
3 times.
Yeah, apparently.
That's 7.5 hours.
I've watched it twice.
Why?
I mean,
because you're doing this.
Well, no. To be fair, I had it on in the background yesterday.
Oh, right. So you didn't watch it then? You just listened to it.
Yeah, fair enough. Apparently, the audio only stream on the BBC Sounds app is better. Apparently, that's what I've heard.
I can listen to it again. Then.
Craig Langford said, however, I would kind of like to hear how Axl's voice would sound a couple of octaves lower.
Yeah.
I agree. I totally agree. Gordy M. Rankin says, "This is Britain. We use pounds and pence." Because I said my 2 cents.
Yeah,
We
but
always-
then if he did do it a couple of octaves lower, it's kind of cheating, isn't it, a little bit? Because
No.
that's not how the songs sound. So people that want to hear how's Sweet Child of Mine going to sound a couple of octaves lower, it's not going to be as
I'm fine with it. I'd be fine with it.
yeah, I'd be pissed off if I was a Guns N' Roses fan and he came out and
You can't sing like that as an older person. You can't. Yeah, you see all these comments, people going, "Oh well, Glenn Hughes is still doing this, and Bruce Dickinson, and all." Someone said Ozzy Osbourne can still get away with it. It's like, no,
he can't even walk on stage by himself.
that guy's been using lots of assistants for many years.
Yeah, well, let's not get into that.
Glenn Hughes is an absolute freak. He's got an amazing voice. There's no point comparing singers. There's no point because everyone's different.
Everyone is
Everyone
different,
matures
yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get on to the elephant in the room. I had a lot of criticism for. I've got pages of this. Capaldi. You
Is
do
Lewis Capaldi or Peter Capaldi?
yeah. Tracy said, "You do realise that Lewis Capaldi has Tourette's and health issues. Why on earth bring his name into this debate?" Okay. I apologise.
Why did you?
Matt Jones said, "I said the same about the Axl Capaldi situation. Axl sounded bloody awful at times, to be fair, but he carried on and did a full set without complaining. Capaldi came out, did a couple of shit songs. This is bad. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Complained, made excuses, then asked the audience to sing for him. That's what Robbie Williams does.
I'm not sure he asked the audience to sing. They kind of, from the footage I saw, they kind of organically did so because they saw that he was struggling to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit harsh, Matt.
I'm glad I wasn't there.
I'll just remind you, I never mentioned anything about his Tourette's. Right? That was not the point of me bringing it up. Ed said, "Dan, you make a bunch of good points, but using Lewis Capaldi, whose recent vocal issues are due to his Tourette's, as a comparison here, probably isn't the exact effect you're looking for." I wasn't looking for an effect. To be honest, yeah, it's a bit of a flippant comment. That said, ageism is very real. Okay. Claire, it wasn't ageism at all. They are no longer headliner material as they're unable to perform like they used to, and people pay a lot of money for tickets, and if a group can't perform to a decent standard, they shouldn't be taking people's money.
Agreed.
I disagree.
Agreed.
Disagree.
Agreed.
People know what they're getting with Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, they're getting Guns N' Roses. I mean, God.
And they went to see him.
They didn't. They were at Glastonbury Festival.
They could have gone to the other stage. They could have gone and watched Lana Del Rey.
There's some people that literally just go to the main stage and stand there all day.
That's up to them, isn't it?
Yeah. And you're talking like quite a few people.
That's up to them.
That do that.
That's a choice.
So they're just going to be there to see Guns N' Roses anyway.
Well, they don't have to, though, don't they? They can walk away.
They can, but they stand there all day. I guess, and there's bars around.
It's still a choice, though, Tim. It's like Meatloaf, wasn't it? But everyone's complaining about his voice before he died. He was
it was
right. Yeah, it wasn't
up
great.
and down.
But if people still want to go and see him and pay the money, then why the hell should he retire? Who's anyone to tell him to retire? Do you think what a band like that should retire?
What, Guns N' Roses?
Yeah.
They're completely irrelevant to me.
Exactly.
So what does it matter?
Well,
to
why
me?
did you
No.
agree?
I just agreed. Yeah, I just agreed.
Why did you agree?
Said.
You agreed with Claire.
Yeah.
You said if they can't perform to a decent standard,
just give
they
it up.
shouldn't be taking people's money.
Yeah, they probably shouldn't.
Well, they're taking Michael Eaves'
Maybe
money.
they should be charging people a little bit less.
Who?
Guns N' Roses.
No, it's Michael Eaves.
Yeah, but no, not they're touring. I'm saying they're touring. They're an expensive band to go watch, right? They play arenas, stadiums. Yeah,
But if they want to go
they're
out,
expensive tickets.
you don't have to buy it here.
No, you don't. No, but it's not what it was, is it? So if
Well,
it's not what it was, surely
apparently
it should be cheaper.
This is bollocks. Life doesn't work like
It
that.
should do. This is not quite as good quality as it used to be. Like this year's harvest isn't quite as good as last year, so we're going to set you for a little bit
It's
cheaper.
inflation, though, isn't it? Things go up.
Yeah, that's just yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I hate the way ticket prices go up, but
Ticket prices are obscene now.
yeah,
They're obscene.
that is bollocks. But
I don't know what tickets were to see Guns N' Roses on their actual tour. I'm guessing they are a damn sight more than they were whenever they last played in this
Lewis
country.
Capaldi really shouldn't have gone on that day either. However, He didn't want to let anyone down, and has a genuine medical issue that impacted his vocal. Axl Rose didn't want to let anyone down.
Well, he let me down.
But he didn't want to.
He didn't set out to do that.
If he did have laryngitis, you could say the
Did
same...
he have laryngitis?
Sound like it.
That's just an excuse. We caught off the guy from Arctic Monkeys, I guess.
Well, regardless, maybe his medical issue is his age.
Yeah, well, I guess he's lived a hard life, hasn't he?
But it doesn't matter, does it?
Has he? I don't know. Not much about the guy.
I mean, she's saying Lewis shouldn't have gone on.
He probably would have got paid if he didn't go on, would he? So that's probably why he went on.
Well, he went off early, didn't he?
Yeah, but he did most of an hour. He did like 50-odd minutes.
Right, okay. Be pretty harsh if there's someone off the stage go, you came off 10 minutes early, mate, no fee.
Yeah, go back out there.
Yeah.
6 more minutes.
Yeah, you
Go
have
on,
now,
Lewis,
as per the
minutes.
contract, you have forfeited your fee for the year.
They were quite strict on, because obviously they cut Lana Del Rey off in the middle of her set.
Yeah.
She was about half an hour out from finishing.
Well, she's doing her hair, wasn't she?
She came on with someone doing her hair, I think.
Had all day to do that. Daniel said, I'd just like to throw in some negativity towards Lewis Capaldi.
Well, nobody asked for that, but hey.
Repetitive, boring and forced vocals, tedious songs. Okay. Charlie. They weren't even bad, I was there. The song choices I wasn't a fan of, bar the big ones, as I didn't know a lot of them, but I'm 34. But I do think it's unfair to compare their set to Lewis Capaldi, though. I wasn't comparing the sets. As that was a different league, and the vocal issues were literally because he was ticking constantly from his Tourette's. Alright, not exactly. His voice actually was a bit... I was commenting on his vocal issue to begin with, okay? I think his Tourette's obviously exacerbated that, and the vocals...
Yeah, I think once he realised he was struggling with his voice, that made him tick a bit more.
Yeah. And
then his voice got worse, and then he ticked even more, and it was a vicious circle. I think that was the problem. Right,
but again, it's like this saying, hold on, he's got Tourette's, you can't criticise him. Once we start going down that road, we're saying you can't start criticising because of X, Y and Z, then it's over. Alright? I'm allowed to criticise someone. And I've got nothing but respect for people like Lewis Capaldi. I'm not a fan of his music, but he seems like a nice kid. Right? And I'm sure he'd agree with me on that. I'm sure he would.
You would. What, are you sure that he thinks he's a nice kid? He seems like a funny guy, to be fair, from stuff I've seen him sort of do online over the years.
But
that was the first time I ever heard him
quite
sing.
endearing, and I did feel for him. It looked like he was struggling, but but we are commenting on music. But let's
it's not a personal thing. Maybe they should have swapped him for Axl, and Axl could have done like a solo acoustic-y set, and Lewis could have fronted Guns N' Roses. That might have been interesting.
Could have been. Chris Tiltman. You can't put the issues Lewis Capaldi had into the same category as someone whose voice just isn't as strong. Okay, fair enough. James Peter Smith. I watched the whole set last night out of interest and thought it was patchy. I don't think the production helped much, as the vocal was very quiet in parts. Axl was struggling with most songs, but the band played very well. Very unfair to use Lewis Capaldi as an example. He's struggling with mental health and Tourette's, not vocal problems.
Maybe a better example would have been Debbie Harry. You could have used her.
Now, that's a good point, actually, too. Because The Independent...
What did The Independent say about Blondie?
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Yeah, they loved their set.
The band were brilliant. They played really well.
And I'm not calling for Debbie Harry to retire. I don't think she should. I think she should do whatever she wants for as long as she wants.
Mm-hmm. She is 77.
And she clearly can't sing the songs like she used to. But she's clearly having fun.
Some of those were quite high back in the day.
Yeah.
But the one that particularly annoyed me was Atomic, because she, she obviously can't sing like that anymore. So she just kind of mumbled her way through it. And for me, I just wasn't very impressed with it.
So apparently that's okay for The Independent.
But The Independent, obviously, that's of... that was of similar quality to Guns N' Roses, because Guns N' Roses, I guess they played well, the band, didn't they, on the whole. Slash seemed to play a 25-minute guitar solo at one point, and everyone thought they were enjoying themselves.
Ang Farrens, they were great. They're old. That shows how long they've been around. But please don't compare them to Lewis Capaldi. There is a huge difference. Lewis Capaldi is having health issues. We know.
What's wrong with Lewis Capaldi though? I mean, surely someone might have mentioned it by now.
When someone has mental health illness, getting a response like Lewis did is such a good boost, which is so very needed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is Glastonbury Festival, though. This isn't the. I don't know what to say without it coming across really badly.
Choose your words very carefully.
It's not. This isn't the mental health support group. It isn't.
No, it's not. No.
Does that sound really bad?
Well, no, but we're not talking. We were never talking. Well, you were never talking.
I wasn't.
You were never mentioning that. You were never talking about that. You were talking about his... I understand what you're saying. You're talking about his vocal performance.
I wasn't commenting. I didn't make a comment.
Comparing it to
I didn't compare it. I was comparing the reaction from people. That's all I said. I wasn't saying Lewis Capaldi was bad or anything like that. You know...
But there's different reasons why, Dan. Do you not understand? Lewis Capaldi has Tourette's.
And there's different reasons
Axl
why...
Rose is 61.
Yeah, well, that's my point. That's my point. There's so many of these. Capaldi's... This is Tom Richardson. Capaldi's vocal problems were due to his disability. Hardly the same thing as just getting older and losing your voice. No, I agree, it's not. Joe Clifford. One lost his voice through drinking drugs and isn't the nicest of people. And the other is Axl Rose. Oh, no, I'm joking. One has a health condition that affects his ability to sing. Not really a fair comparison at all. And finally, David McRitchie.
Was this the good one? This one is pretty. This one sums it up quite well, I think. The whole thing.
Lewis Capaldi has Tourette's syndrome. You absolute ignorant prick. Okay. Fair point. That wasn't my intention.
Were you ignorant of the fact when you wrote that post that Lewis Capaldi had Tourette's syndrome?
No, I knew he had Tourette's syndrome.
When did you find out he had Tourette's syndrome?
Like a week ago.
Yeah, when he played the show, yeah?
Maybe it was just before, I don't know. I don't really know who the kid is, but... did he have a Netflix show or something like that?
A documentary or something like that.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Maybe you should watch that and learn about Tourette's syndrome. and educate yourself.
I know quite well about Tourette's syndrome.
I've seen loads of documentaries about Tourette's syndrome over the years. It's very interesting.
Yeah, you know, it is fascinating. Right, on the topic of auto-tune, so Alex Didcott, welcome to rock music. Guns N' Roses, Ozzy and Iron Maiden, to name a few of my all-time favourite live artists, and all of them pushing on in age and still doing it raw. They're not.
Ozzy Osbourne? Did you say Ozzy Osbourne is doing it?
Yeah, no.
I don't bloody think so, and that's not been the case for at least
with
30 years.
With no auto-tune and hours of running about on stage. No. I'm not hating on Ozzy, I've got a lot of love for Ozzy. He doesn't, but I do.
No, sod him.
Dave North. They turned up on time, unlike someone else. They rocked it like Guns N' Roses. What's not to like? Agreed.
The fact that it's Guns N' Roses.
I agree, Dave. Rad Rockford. I remember seeing Tool once in Sydney, and they made a rare mistake during a song, and the backing track was clearly audible. It broke my heart.
Wow.
Tool.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because they're the musician's choice of band that are held up in high regard. So it's something. That is
sad, isn't it?
Something to aspire to.
That is sad.
That's interesting.
Kane Pill. My only issue is there are heaps of young, relevant, real rock bands out there that have the chops to headline, but unfortunately don't get the exposure anymore, like all these legendary bands got to experience. Name one.
They are?
Name one.
Biffy Clyro.
Royal Blood?
No. Did you see Royal Blood?
No.
kind of.
Are they big enough to headline?
I don't think so. There's nothing wrong with what they do, and
Muse,
it's quite entertaining. Muse, I think Muse and Biffy.
There's not, but then they've all
been around for 20 odd years now.
Biffy have been around 20 years. Muse have been around longer than that.
Yeah.
So
when we talk about recent bands, those are the most recent bands. I mean, Raw Blood aren't.
So neither of them are young bands.
Name
me one young, relevant, real rock band out there. I mean, we do know loads of young, relevant bands who could headline, but they're nowhere near famous enough to do that.
No, bands that could pull off a great show and play a 2-hour headline set at Glastonbury. Yeah,
it's completely. It'd be completely pointless you taking a great band, 19 years old, but it'd be completely pointless you taking them, sticking them on headlining Glastonbury.
I think it's only really Biffy and Muse that enough people would know who they are for them to justify them having.
And they're old. They're not young.
20 odd years ago. So, is there anybody else? Bullet for My Valentine? No.
They're not young.
No, again, I'm thinking. I'm going a little bit further forward. They were a big thing at one point, weren't they? Lost Prophets. No one ever talks about them anymore.
Joseph Wynn. I'd have preferred him to use a bit of auto tune, to be honest. And there were plenty of examples of singers even older than him this weekend who clearly have taken care of their voice and adapted in order to make the performance at least palatable. Okay, let's talk about that. Elton John.
Mm-hmm.
His voice is still good. Obviously, he's not Elton John of 1973.
No, but he knows that and he's adapted that quite well.
But also, Elton John never sang in that.
No.
He never did that, right? Cat Stevens.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, he kind of changes down a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which is wise.
Yeah. You know you can't hold me for...
That note in that is nuts.
Cat Stevens sounded really good.
Yep.
Even some of those songs you could hear he was reaching for a little bit, like Matthew and Son and stuff like that. And also,
that was quite early in the set. I think he was warmed up properly for that.
Yeah, it was good though. Really, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But again, he never did that kind of screechy falsetto voice.
No.
You can't compare it. Like the people say, no, you've got Glenn Hughes over here. He could. Well, no, there's different voices, different people. But Axl Rose's voice is very specific. I bought a Paul Young earlier. Have you heard Paul Young sing recently? He literally can't sing.
He's touring at the moment.
I guarantee he's miming.
I'm not going to go.
Either that or he's singing everything in a low register. Because he had no end of issues with his voice.
His career was sort of curtailed quite quickly, wasn't it?
He was massive.
Yeah,
he was massive. But I think he had polyps in his vocal cords, didn't he?
Yeah.
But that was because of the way he sang. I get your point, Joseph, but no, I would not have wanted him to have auto-tune on it.
What, on Guns N' Roses?
I don't want anyone to have auto-tune. Live.
Apart from Cher.
Yeah. Tim James, we know Tim. I don't know what people were expecting. They sound like Guns N' Roses to me. That's kind of my point.
But you can also take that in... I could say that.
Yeah.
I don't know what people were expecting. They sounded like Guns N' Roses to me.
Yeah. I mean, I said to you last week, it's like, well, I didn't go in it with a big expectation. I wasn't expecting anything more or less than what I got.
Don't get me wrong, nor did I. I didn't go in expecting anything at all. Didn't get anything.
Jodie, this is quite a funny one. I left after an hour, absolutely furious that they were given a 2-hour slot and only sang one of their massive hits in the whole time. The crowd are there to hear all your all-time classics, not to plug recent hits. Use your tour for that, not hits. Glastonbury.
Recent hits. It's all old stuff, right? Have you got the set list there?
I do, right? Use your tour for that, not Glastonbury. Right? His choice wasn't great, but as you say, you expect that, but you don't expect to sit around for an hour at Glastonbury on a headliner set and only hear one classic! ! Outrageous.
I guess that's Welcome to the Jungle, right?
They were the one band I was so excited to see. What you want, but you only know the hits. So when the lineup came out, and I've never been so disappointed, said Jodie. All right, I've got the set list here. Well, they played all the hits. They came on with It's So Easy. That was a big hit.
Was it?
I don't know if it was a single, but that was always a very well-known Guns N' Roses song.
I didn't know it that well.
Welcome to the Jungle was 5th. Everyone knows Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Especially now it's been in like Jumanji film and stuff like that. Followed up by Mr. Brownstone.
Mm-hmm.
Big hit.
Yeah.
Then you got a couple of album tracks, to be fair. Pretty Tied Up. I like that one. Double Talking Jive. Estranged. Then Live and Let Die, the cover of the Wings song. Now, fair enough. They do then do like a bit of a weird... They do that down on the farm. They do Rocket Queen. They do Absurd, which is the. Then they go into Civil War, which was that, very well known song off one of the Use Your Illusion albums, wasn't
Very
it?
well known. I didn't know it that well.
He came on with the Ukraine shirt on that.
Yeah,
didn't he?
he did. Yeah.
But then it's You Could Be Mine. You know that.
I
one,
know that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Once,
November
twice.
Rain, which
Yeah,
wasn't great.
The less said about that, the better.
Patience. Do you know Patience?
I didn't have any left at this point.
And the last few songs, Knocking on Heaven's Door, Night Train, Paradise City. But this.
They played all the songs I knew of theirs.
Yes.
I'd say that for. They played some stuff I didn't.
I'm just trying to think what's missing.
What's missing was Jodie's patience in sitting through all of that stuff at the beginning of the set that she didn't know.
And lastly, Richard Lamb said he thought it was great. The whole band put on one of the best performances they've done since the early 90s. And the Glasgow audience are trying to compare his 61-year-old vocals to performances from 30 years ago without following any vocal or band developments. So there's context.
So what are the band developments in those 30 odd years?
Well, I know what he's saying. Obviously, the band has changed, isn't it? Because, they weren't a band for a long time. He had his hired hands.
Yeah.
They got a different drummer now.
How's that change his voice?
Well, I guess in that sense is
should be closer to how it sounded in the 80s, really, because it's the original guys.
We've had 30 or 40 years of
drugs,
and alcohol. But his main point is I was more surprised there wasn't any stick for booking a Glasgow headliner with ridiculously misogynistic lyrics. To be honest, that's true.
I couldn't hear half the lyrics anyway, so
that what was that song? Was it Absurd?
Yeah, some of that sounded a bit rude, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I think some of the lyrics on that sounded quite misogynistic. So I guess that's quite funny to see a Glastonbury crowd rocking along to that, isn't it?
Maybe that's why he was doing it in that voice, that you couldn't quite hear what was being said, because he knew that if you could hear what was being said, people would be offended by it.
So what have we learned from tonight, Tim? Fuck all.
What have we learned from tonight? Well,
I haven't changed your mind, have I?
No. I don't like Guns N' Roses. Never have done. And this performance didn't change my mind at all.
You offended that they were asked to play Glastonbury?
I don't care. It's not something that affects me. I mean, I ain't going to go to Glastonbury Festival. Like I said, this year it turned out that I probably would have liked to have gone, but I'm not taking a £300 gamble when I could end up having to watch Guns N' Roses because there's nothing else on. It's a situation that isn't going to change, is it? Because they're never going to not sell that festival out before they announce the bands. So it is what it is. I'm probably never going to go to Glastonbury Festival. But yeah, if I was there, I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have been watching them. So take from that what you will. I probably would have caught it on the television when I got home and seen the backlash, and then thought, oh yeah, I was right to not go and watch them. And you would have said, well, I watched it and it was great.
I guess what we have learned is it's okay not to agree with each other.
Yeah, we know that anyway. This is not like a moral lesson, is it?
But social media, it's just
social media is poisonous. That's something that we can take away from this, and people can just write insults to people they don't know. He's got Tourette syndrome, you prick. It's not nice, is it?
I did send you a message, and someone said, I can't believe you said that. He's got Tourette syndrome, you effing... The irony.
Okay, you just developed Tourette syndrome yourself.
Mad.
Yeah, it's but that's the internet. That gives people that kind of shield to hide behind, doesn't it? When it comes to saying what they want with no consequences. But those people that we've used your comments today, there are consequences because we're now replying to what you've said.
Just a bit of fun, I guess.
It's just a bit of fun, yeah.
Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll be back with some more content very soon.
Bye.
Bye.